Today we're taking a look at the Novablast 4, so I'm going to change it up a bit. I'm going to review the shoe in its entirety, and then I'm going to take you out on A/B run with the number Novablast 3 and compare it closely, as well as my impressions from the run in the 4. Hello everybody, Sam from RoadTrailRun. Today we're going to talk about the Novablast 4, $140, releasing December 1st, 2023. So the Novablast 1, 2, and 3 all were kind of special shoes, a bit of a surprise for ASICS that they did so well, but here at RoadTrailRun we thought that their lightweight kind of arrow-like ride would be very popular with runners, and they were. So here we are at version 4, which sees some pretty significant changes. We think all for the positive. So first, we'll focus underfoot here a little bit. We get a wider heel by 5 millimeters, and we get a wider forefoot by 5 millimeters. And to go with this wider platform, we have a new geometry with an outrigger kind of shape, a less stiff heel counter, and we're going to compare closely to the number 3 on the run later in the video. And we get a new foam. We get a new flavor of Flight Foam Blast Plus called Eco, and it has 20% bio-based material. And I'm finding it a bit softer, a bit more energetic than regular Flight Foam Blast Plus. We also, while we're on sustainability, because that's important and important to ASICS, we have 75% of the content of the upper recycled materials. And for the first time at ASICS, and I'm not sure others have done this yet, we have the carbon footprint of the entire shoe called out and marked on the sock liner. So in terms of the upper here, instead of an engineered mesh, as we had here, we have a woven material, and I like woven uppers. They tend to have a bit of stretch, but not so much that they're sloppy like a knit. We also have a pretty significant change to the tongue, a little hard to see. We'll bring the other one up next to it. With a kind of neoprene material with little pads, ventilation holes down lower, a little harder to see, but we have ventilation holes, whereas here we had just a very thin perforated tongue. As we put them up on the deck here, on the railing, and you'll see from my run comparison, we have a slightly wider, roomier toe box. We also see, and let me get the right shoe here lined up. We also get a different implementation of the Achilles collar. You can see it's higher. The heel counter is not as stiff. It's a more comfortable hold. In terms of your fit, true to size, I think wides will be available, and somewhat roomier, I think, than version 3. But there's more. Let's talk a bit more about weight and geometry here. So in terms of weight, because we have that wider platform, we're about 17 grams heavier at 9.1 ounces, 258 grams in a US 9. It's still very light for what is a really big stack height, unchanged, 41.5 at the heel, 33.5 at the front. So this is in max cushion territory at 9 ounces and only $140. So what ASICS also calls out is the toe spring, which is this angle to which the shoe is kind of brought up, which with that big 33.5 millimeter forefoot, you need something to get you forward. When I think of, say, the Nimbus 25, I find its toe off more awkward. Even the fantastic Super Blast, higher stacked, lighter, and $60 more. It's hard when you have this kind of stack height to get a nice roll. Now, if we look at the flex, and this is after about 4 shorter runs, we do start to get some flex. It's further back. And what I found was, because we're 5 millimeters broader at the front here, at 115. We're not quite as kind of agile feeling as in our number 3 up on the front. And I'll show you the flex there. You can see it has more flex further forward. So, but that's a bit of a minus. But the big plus is, and you'll see in the AB video, we have, I think, softer, more forgiving forefoot cushion. Maybe a bit, maybe not what you would call soft, but this new foam is very energetic. It's not a supercritical foam, and we're at $140. So we really get kind of a supercritical ride on a budget here. A few other notes. Let's look a bit at the outsole as well. It is, as you can see, more pattern. Maybe might expect a bit more grip. It's wet out today. I haven't been out, but it's been warm and dry. But you can see the deeper decoupling grooves at the front, more patterning of the outsole. And ASICS calls this AHAR, or ASICS High Abrasion Rubber, low, LO. For low weight, you can see it is thicker than the firmer rubber that was on the number 3. What I really noticed, and the rubber may play a role, is side by side, this is definitely more cushioned in the forefoot, more forgiving, and as often people say, the 3s, 2s have been kind of slappy. So what do I see the shoe for? Some of the pros and cons here. Well, we have an excellent weight to max cushion stack height of near superfoam, no question. The more pronounced toe spring gets me forward. I'd like to see it even a bit more flexible when the flex points start further forward. The foam is more energetic and softer, to me anyway, than the original Flight Foam Blast Plus. More important now, whereas our versions 1 through 3, although they increasingly got more stable, now we have a more stable platform. This is a neutral shoe. ASICS has plenty of other stable neutral shoes. The Nimbus 25, the Cumulus 25, almost to a fault they're stable. So it's more stable. We sit well down in. We have the wider platform, so it becomes a much more of an option in their lineup as a daily trainer, as opposed to maybe a more up-tempo daily trainer as the earlier versions were. So I think more runners should try this as their daily trainer, especially if you're an ASICS fan and you find the Cumulus and the latest Nimbus a bit too much, because those are considerably broader at the heel, very kind of blocky, especially the Nimbus. So this is a much more agile shoe. The other big pro for me is the sustainability here, the CO2 footprint, and the recycled content, and the midsole being 20% bio-based. In terms of con, I think the 5mm additional width could be trimmed down. In fact, the Cumulus, which has a much wider heel, and midfoot has a narrower platform forefoot, I think that would give it a bit more agility. It's a little broad feeling up front. And of course, I mentioned a bit more flexibility further forward to go with this really cool toe spring. Let me show you that toe spring compared to the number 3 here. You can see it much more pronounced, steeper angle. And then so those are the pros and cons. Now, I've taken them out for several runs, including an AB run here in New Hampshire. So I'm going to share that with you now with some scenery and a bit of history. Stay tuned. I'll even give you a short history of a battle of our War of 1812, where, and pardon to our English-British friends, where the British were repulsed as they were trying to get supplies at the harbor. So I got them on our brand new rail trail here. Goes for about 10-12 miles, basically from Maine to Massachusetts. All brand new, just built. So our Novablast 4 on this surface perfectly fine. Novablast 1 was kind of unstable. Here we're plenty stable enough. It's not, a trail shoe. I wouldn't call the grip kind of wet trail worthy, but there's a lot of nice bounce and energy on the surface. Even more maybe than the road. Gonna keep going. So I'm going around 9-10 per mile here, home stretch. I'm getting, the rocker is really good. Getting a little warmth in the front of the toes. I think maybe relatively soft foam and a rigid platform. May take a bit more breaking in. Uphills, downhills, very steady, very smooth. Definitely more refined than E3, which I'll describe for you. Got some nice leaves, not too many, coming to the end of the leaf season. So I said the 4 is not quite as arrow-like as the 3. However, its new, more pronounced toe spring and rocker give it a considerably smoother toe off and a softer one. The heel feels a teeny bit softer, but the forefoot definitely feels more forgiving without it being mushy in any way. So there's a lot of kind of return from this new Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco Foam. Much more return than in the 3. Although they are still kind of wider in platform at the front. So I'm going to keep going here. Unusually warm day here in Rye. Beach was packed. So in terms of the comparative fit, you can see clearly the number 4 is a little wider, broader to the ball of the foot than number 3, and the tip is a little more rounded. But they're both true to size. I think very narrow feet may still be happier with the 3. Wider feet with the 4. There is some kind of hold, stretch, give. The other thing I note is the higher collar of our 4 is both more comfortable and more secure without as much of a rigid heel counter as the 3 had, and we've got our big outrigger that helps with stability. I am noticing, and I'll talk a bit more, that the 4 is a little less arrow-like. I always called the 3 and the earlier ones arrow-like, but we now have that wider platform. So the heel feels about the same, but the forefoot feels a little bit more awkward. Not much, because it's still a fast shoe. Thank you very much for watching. Please check out our full multi-tester review over at RoadTrailRun.com. And also please consider picking up one of our matching colors, custom Fractal Road Trail Run buckets or caps.